Another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast. Today we got Guy Evans, a fellow podcaster. He's also played international basketball. He writes on theboilingfrogpost.com, which is Sibel Edmonds' website, and he's also had tons of cool people on his podcast: Daniele Bagnelli, Doug Ruskoff, Dan Carlin, Michael Rubert, Noam Chomsky, James Corbett, who has also been on our show. So he's had tons of really interesting people that and Rob Van Dam, which was a really cool podcast, which I enjoyed because growing up when I was a kid, I was a huge Rob Van Dam fan, and just to kind of hear him as a person, and then to know that he's such a cool person was made me even a bigger fan, because usually they tell you you don't want to meet your heroes because they'll usually suck and disappoint you, but Rob was actually a really cool guy, so that was really cool. Talked about spirituality and all that stuff. So definitely check out his podcast. He always has really interesting guests. He talks about a lot of the same subjects we talk about, from culture, society, personal philosophies, current events, a little bit of everything. So
definitely a wide variety of stuff. Checking out your website today, I'd like to congratulate you on recently your 100th podcast. And,
well, thank you.
Checking out your categories, I think it's close to 200 different categories you've covered in those 100 podcasts. So I think that's speaks well to the variety of stuff that you cover.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, guys, thank you so much for the intro, and it's a pleasure to be on your podcast. As I said to you off air, I think based on your initial 5 episodes, I think there's a lot of potential, quite frankly, for you guys to really, reach a good sized audience. So I think you need to keep it up. But I think I try not to box myself in and cover the same tired 2 or 3 topics. I tend to try to cover, things that interest me, and as you said there, Dave, you see the result. The number of topics, are quite. They range in 200, 250 at this point.
Yeah, it's awesome. I wanted to talk to you because I've been a fan of your podcast for a while, since early in the beginning, because it seemed like anytime I was searching interviews with any person that I'm really intrigued with, your name would come up and your podcast would come up. And I'm like, oh crap! I'm like, I got to check this out. So I'll check it out. And so I've been a fan for a while, but it was cool one day I went on your website and I went on the About section that told you a little bit about yourself, and you played international basketball. I didn't know that. So did you play for some professional teams over Europe? Did you play in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, as a matter of fact, I actually played for my national team. I'm from Wales. I'm Welsh. A lot of people here in the States confuse that with being English, but I just want to make that. I just want to make that distinction clear. I played for my national team at the youth level and also the senior level as well. At one point, I was in the UK development squad for basketball, and I won a national championship in college. So it was really the focus of my life, especially in my teenage years and going into my early 20s. And then that kind of morphed into other things. I got into coaching and teaching because of that, but it all kind of originated from playing basketball. So I'm a huge fan of the game, and I always will be. Is there anything you want to talk about possibly the influence of basketball? I'm one of those people that I believe that sports, especially arts and sports, it always seems like they're like the first 2 things that get cut or they invest in schools and stuff. And I'm a big believer that it's important for arts. I think it's important, music and stuff like that, because it helps with creativity, critical thinking, and not just remembering names and dates like it seems like most of our school systems now. And but sports, especially, another thing about sports is that I'm a big believer that I think that learning to lose, learning that working hard pays off. Those are lessons. Those are life lessons that stick with you forever. And we kind of feel, or I feel like we're in like a softened up society a little bit, where just like everybody gets a trophy and everybody gets a hug and whatnot. And because of it, it almost doesn't teach you, or it doesn't. It's not a realistic compared to real life that, in the real world, you don't work hard, you end up losing your job or getting fired, or, you don't succeed. And I think those life lessons you get from sports are really important. And so when I read that you played international basketball, I wasn't surprised, because I feel like, well, this is probably, he's learned that, hey, if I invest my time and efforts, that, it'll pay off. And, you similar to us, I'm guessing, one day just said, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. Let me give it a try and put in hard work, when there's a lot of other people out there who just talk about it and don't end up going through with it. So do you think that those life lessons paid off?
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think, the benefit that I had from playing basketball at that level and just being focused on athletics, throughout my adolescent years and the early part of my life, it just, as you put it, it just taught me that if you put time into something and put effort into something, you will come to see the results. And I think that's really helped me in other aspects of my life as well. So I know there's always going to be a camp of people who deride sports, and I'm more than willing to have an open discussion about sports, particularly why we take it so seriously, why we invest so much in it emotionally. I think there is a tendency that all of us can take it too far at times, but I don't think anyone can deny the positive effects of taking part in sport and devoting part of your life to it. It certainly helped me. So.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree. I think that there are some people from like a lot of it seems like there's a crowd that the jocks get kind of the idea that, oh, if you're a jock, you can't be smart, and if you're smart, you can't be a jock, or vice versa. And I think that it's a bad way of thinking. I think that there's nothing wrong with obviously when you're in school you try to fit and click. So I think that's a big part of it too. But I think that we should be teaching that both are important, and one not more important than the other. And when somebody fits into a group, to expand their horizons and try to invest in other things. And every one of these things you invest in, you end up taking something from. I'm sure if you played basketball or if you did whatever thing you end up doing professionally, well, you can always take something from it, and there are people who take it too far. I agree. I think that I think one of the problems, and it's funny because I'm a big fan of your work with about Edward Bernays. We talked about him quite a bit on this podcast because just like yourself, I think that he's a big influence on the way society's been kind of designed and the way things work right now. But I think that because we're in this consumer producer society and we don't have a lot of pleasures in life, we spend most of our time working and just creating debt and then trying to pay off that debt. I think that that's why you get these people that are fanatics, because I think sports ends up being your time away from reality. And then it's like this one time you're not thinking about bills, you're not thinking about work, you're not thinking about all these things that are just stresses on your life, and you actually just get to. I mean, I know for me working, me and Dave both work full-time jobs, and I can't wait to get home and watch, being from Massachusetts, watching the Celtics or watching. I'm a big basketball fan, so I'll watch a lot of teams just if they're competitive, and I can't wait. And it's my time away from work and stress and this consumer producer world that we live in. And so I think that's I think you're right. Some people do take it far, but I think some of it is because of the way society's been designed, that we don't have a lot of pleasures in life.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I don't think there's anything wrong with having an escape, as long as you keep everything in balance. At least that's my personal perspective. And I know there's a lot of people out there who will look at, sports or television or any sort of form of entertainment and just say it's a complete waste of time. You shouldn't be, engaging in watching and following those type of things. But at the end of the day, similar to you guys, there's a lot of things that I care about. There's a lot of things that I'm, frustrated and angry about in terms of the world at large, but I still want to enjoy my life at the same time. And I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that, quite frankly.
Yeah, I definitely think that we can get really dark and gloomy and depressed because especially from my personal experience, there's times where I get obsessed with I am obsessed with information and documentaries and stuff like that. But it seems like sometimes you can get so caught up in that, and you're always like kind of staring right in the eyes of what's bad or evil in the world, that we don't spend enough time doing the things that are happy. And really, like my personal opinion, I think what's important in life and why we're here for the most part is to be happy and to find happiness, and no matter what that is. I think that's why we hang out with people that make you smile and you enjoy their company. I think that's why we drink certain things that make us happy. We smoke certain things that make us happy. I think we do all that because we're looking for some completion. I think that's why we like relationships. I think that's why we love our kids or pets. I think we're looking for that fulfillment, that companionship, and so I think that's a big part of it. And from my experience, I definitely love looking into this information because I think that some of it's so eye-opening and it's so crazy what's going on, and so many issues from Monsanto to money in medicine and all this other stuff that it's hard not to want to do more research. But every once in a while I kind of have to take a step back and listen, Ricky, you can't get too caught up in this. You have to enjoy your life a little bit, and so it's a balancing act. Do you find yourself kind of doing something similar?
Yeah, I think there's a tendency it can always get on top of you, and it can become too much at times. It's funny that you mentioned documentaries there. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the documentary Collapse with Michael Rupert. Have you seen
Yeah,
that before?
yeah. That's what made me a Michael Ruber fan. That
Yeah.
documentary. Yeah.
So I remember the first time that I watched that documentary, and I remember stepping away from the TV, just like this feeling of hopelessness, like why the world is going to collapse, like everything's going to fall apart. So, what's the point of doing anything? What's the point of speaking out about anything or trying to create change? Forgetting that there's a big wide world out there, and the things that really matter in terms of making ourselves happy and making other people's happy and making other people happy, I should say, and following, what we really want to do. We can't lose perspective of those things. So I absolutely agree. I think you can get bogged down in a kind of murky world of doom and gloom at times, and it's always good to keep that balance.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're always looking for happiness. I think that's why I started this podcast with my buddy Dave, and then I'm sure that's why you started your podcast. And actually, that leads to another thing I'm kind of curious about. Was there a specific moment or time in your life that you anything? Maybe it wasn't a specific moment. Maybe it was a bunch of moments. But do you recall a time in your life where you're like, you know what, this is I want to do a podcast. This is the moment that I decided that in that second that you decide that, hey, I'm going to go along with this and this is something I want to fulfill and do?
That's a great question. I can't say there was a specific moment or day where I just decided I want to do a podcast. I think it's something I had in mind for a while, but I do distinctly remember the first time that I really started to question things, and I remember having the feeling that perhaps there was more to meet the eye in relation to a lot of things that I took as being normal, and that was during the time of the Iraq War, post 9/11, the whole 45-minute WMD warning stuff. And this was a big deal in Britain, where they sold the idea to the public that weapons of mass destruction could be unleashed on the shores of Britain within 45 minutes. And of course, this ended up being complete fabrication. And I remember when this all came out, just thinking to myself, because I hadn't really I wasn't alive during Vietnam, during the World Wars, during the Falklands War even. So I hadn't really experienced, wartime to that extent before. And I remember just thinking, the whole country surely will just flip after hearing this news. After now we know that it was a hoax, or at the very least, fabricated. There's just going to be riots. There's just going to be protests everywhere. And for a time it was a big deal, and then it just kind of faded away, and it seemed like that was the pattern with everything. It was a big deal for a while, and then people just moved on. And that was the first time that I really remember thinking, like, wow, this is a crazy world that we live in, and these decisions that people are making that are so important, we need to hold them more accountable. But as far as taking the steps to make a podcast, I think I had that idea for a while, and I guess it was about 18 months ago that I recorded the first episode.
Yeah, yeah, I'll tell you, I heard Dan Carlin on a podcast before, where he talked about basically enforcing people and trying to spark the idea, hey, create a podcast. It doesn't take a whole lot to kind of just start the process and get something going. And I was thinking, I was listening to him say this, and I'm just like, and he also said, oh, email people. He's like, you'll be surprised who responds. And I remember listening to that, and I'm like, yeah, right. I'm like these podcasters, once they get going, nobody's going to email you back, But it was amazing how quickly. It didn't take much before I heard back from you. I heard back from James Corbett, Daniele Bagnelli. I heard back from so many people, and I was very surprised how this family of podcasters, how this community of podcasters, how everybody, it does seem like a family. It seems like everybody's helping each other out. I mean, you don't have to take time out of your day to be on some up and coming podcasts. You've had some pretty notable people on your podcast. Same thing with James Corbett. He does tons of stuff too. He doesn't have to take any time. So it's cool to see that when I hear people say, hey, you know what, start your podcast, follow your dreams, or follow whatever you want to do. We'll definitely support you if we can. It really does feel like a family, and it's cool to be a part of this. And I think it's going to be we're not even close to where I think podcasting can be. I think there's still a lot of people out there, even though in the podcast world it seems like it's a huge media spot for media. There's still tons of people who don't know what a podcast is, which is pretty.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. I think podcasting is on the verge of a big explosion. I mean, I have read some opinions of people saying that the heyday of podcasting was in years past, but I think there's no denying, if you look at the statistics, more people are accessing this medium than ever before. And you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't even know what a podcast is. They don't have the vaguest clue. And I think clearly that will change over time. But what you were speaking to there, I think it reminds me of this thing called the imposter syndrome. And a kind of form of that is where people feel like, who am I to start a podcast? Who am I to interview notable people? Who am I to try to make a difference and get my word out, my voice out there to the public? And, we just have to turn off that little voice in our head. And you guys are living proof of it. It's just as simple as pressing record and then before you know it, you have a podcast up and running. It's really not that difficult. But I think that's something else that society kind of does to us. It makes us believe that only experts, only the privileged can have a say. But because of the internet and new technology, I think that proves that everyone has equal footing and it's a level playing field now.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think the cool thing about podcasting that you learn that it's not just notable people who have interesting opinions. I work construction. We have a family-owned construction company, and I'm constantly working in different towns. It's all over the state, Connecticut, to the borders of New York, and I'm all over the place. And I meet people from all different types of backgrounds and all types of things. And I'll meet just a person living in a small little town, and we'll get talking about, politics or philosophy or whatever. And this person will just have the greatest conversation. And then I realize, like, wow, like, I could be that person. I'm just because I don't have this. I'm not an author. I don't have this resume. People might still want to listen to my opinion the same way I find intriguing this opinion of somebody else who's just an average Joe. So I think it's cool. You learn that people respect opinions and not so much just your, what you've done in your career, what you've done in your life or whatnot. And I think that's one thing that podcasting has shown, that the average person like yourself can have very intelligent, good conversations with people who have these amazing resumes and be just as